The image that opens this narrative is far from an ordinary portrait. It is a haunting and enigmatic photograph of a young boy, poised in a finely crafted 19th-century chair, dressed meticulously in attire befitting a child of his social standing. His small hands rest gently on his lap, and his lips curve into a serene smile that seems almost too vivid for the somber circumstances surrounding its creation. The boy's eyes, wide and shimmering, gaze softly ahead, inviting the viewer into a moment suspended between life and death. This photograph, taken in the late 1800s, is not merely a family keepsake, but a rare artifact from a time when the boundaries of mourning and memory were explored in ways that today strike us as both intimate and unsettling. Before we embark on the mesmerizing exploration of a haunting portrait that captures the essence of a boy, forever smiling at his own funeral, be sure to subscribe and like the video to remain in the loop for our captivating tales. And tell me, what emotions does this striking image evoke for you as we journey through its profound history? During the Victorian era, the practice of post-mortem photography emerged as a poignant response to the high mortality rates, especially among children. Families who often lost their loved ones prematurely were left without physical reminders, as photography was both a nascent and costly technology. The grieving sought to preserve the final image of those who had departed, creating portraits that captured the deceased in serene repose, sometimes arranged as if asleep or positioned among living relatives. These images served as tangible tokens of remembrance, silent witnesses to grief and love intertwined. Yet this particular portrait stands apart amidst the many post-mortem images from the era. It is not simply a commemorative photograph. It is a deliberate and haunting invitation to peer beyond the veil of death, to contemplate the delicate boundary where life seems to linger. The boy's smile, so vivid and peaceful, defies the stark finality of his passing. It is a smile that challenges the viewer's instinct to see only sorrow, suggesting instead an enduring vitality preserved against the relentless march of mortality. The family who commissioned this portrait was steeped in both grief and resolve. Their loss was sudden and shattering, an event that would redefine their understanding of death and remembrance. The decision to capture this final moment in such an evocative manner was born from a desire to confront despair with an image of peace, a testament to their love and a refusal to let memory fade into darkness. It was a choice that both honored their son and unsettled those who beheld the resulting photograph, leaving an indelible imprint on the cultural landscape of mourning. Behind the boy's serene smile lies a story of a family grappling with the harsh realities of mortality in an age when death was a frequent companion. Their choice to create this portrait was not merely about preserving a likeness, but about capturing the essence of a life abruptly extinguished. The photograph, with its delicate balance of lifelike expression and solemn stillness, becomes a silent narrative of loss, love, and the human yearning to transcend the finality of death. As the viewer lingers on the boy's image, the layers of meaning embedded within the photograph begin to unfold. The meticulous care taken in composition, the soft lighting that bathes the child's face, the carefully chosen attire that reflects both innocence and dignity, speaks to a profound reverence for the moment. Every detail is a testament to the family's commitment to preserve not just a memory, but an experience of presence. The photograph, therefore, is more than a mere image. It is a bridge that connects the living to the departed, a silent conversation across the gulf of mortality. This practice of post-mortem photography, while common in the 19th century, carried with it complex emotions and social rituals. It was a way for families to publicly assert their grief to ritualize mourning in a manner that was both personal and communal. Yet the boy's portrait transcends these conventions, revealing a deeper, more unsettling dimension to the act of remembrance. His smile, so vivid and seemingly alive, unsettles the viewer's expectations, suggesting a presence that lingers beyond death's final claim. The boy's family, members of the Victorian upper middle class, were no strangers to the customs and traditions of their time. They understood the cultural significance of mourning and the rituals that accompanied loss. Yet, their approach to memorializing their son was marked by an unusual determination to capture something more than a static image. They sought to preserve a semblance of life itself. This motivation imbued the photograph with a potency that would ripple through the years, becoming a subject of fascination and unease. In the intimate setting of their parlor, the family prepared for the photographic session with a mix of solemnity and hope. The boy's favorite chair was positioned carefully near a window, where the natural light could gently illuminate his face without casting harsh shadows. His clothes, chosen for their softness and innocence, were arranged with meticulous care, highlighting the tender fragility of childhood. The atmosphere was thick with the tension between the living and the departed, a charged silence that spoke volumes about the family's grief and their desire for a final connection. The photographer chosen for this session was known locally for his skill and his willingness to undertake unusual assignments. He was a man attuned to the nuances of light and shadow, capable of coaxing warmth and depth from the cold medium of early photography. Yet even he found himself moved and unsettled by the boy's portrait, sensing that this was no ordinary commission. The smile, captured in the image, seemed to transcend the technical challenges of the day, embodying a mystery that defied explanation. As the camera's shutter clicked, capturing the boy's serene expression, the room seemed to hold its breath. It was a moment frozen in time, a fragile boundary between presence and absence. The family watched with a mixture of sorrow and solace, hoping that this image would serve as a lasting testament to their son's spirit. The photograph, once developed, would become a silent companion in their mourning, a source of comfort and an object of profound fascination. This portrait, with its haunting smile and delicate composition, invites us to reflect on the complex interplay of death, memory, and the human desire to hold on to what is lost. It challenges the viewer to see beyond the surface, to consider the ways in which art and ritual intersect to create meaning in the face of mortality. The boy's image is not merely a record of death, but a living testament to love's persistence, a fragile yet powerful echo of life that continues to resonate through the decades. In capturing this final moment, the family transcended the conventions of their time, creating an image that is at once beautiful and unsettling. The boy's smile, so vivid and serene, remains a haunting reminder of the delicate boundary between life and death, inviting all who gaze upon it to contemplate the mysteries that lie beyond the visible world. It is an invitation to remember, to mourn, and to wonder, a silent story told through the language of light and shadow, forever etched in the fragile medium of early photography. The boy at the center of this haunting portrait was named Thomas Whitaker, the youngest child of an established family whose roots ran deep within the Victorian middle-class society of 1860s England. The Whitakers were respectable, their lineage marked by merchants and professionals who had steadily risen in social standing through a combination of enterprise and education. Their home, a modest but well-appointed townhouse in a bustling provincial town, reflected their values: order, decorum, and an adherence to the customs that governed life and death in their era. Thomas was the cherished youngest son, a bright and gentle child, whose presence brought warmth to the household. His parents, Margaret and Edward Whittaker, were devout and deeply invested in the social rituals that shaped their community. They navigated the complexities of Victorian life with a measured grace, balancing the expectations of their class with a genuine affection for their children. Yet, no amount of preparation or social standing could shield them from the sudden and devastating blow that fate would soon deliver. In the harsh winter of 1869, Thomas fell ill with a fever that quickly worsened, baffling their family physician and defying the modest medical knowledge of the time. What began as a mild complaint rapidly escalated into a relentless sickness that drained the life from the boy's small frame. The Whittakers watched helplessly as their son's condition deteriorated, their hopes waning with each passing day. His unexpected death sent shockwaves through the family, a rupture in their carefully ordered world that left an aching void. The suddenness of Thomas's passing magnified the grief of his parents and siblings. In a society where death was both a frequent visitor and a subject shrouded in ritual, the Whittakers found themselves confronting their sorrow, while adhering to the customs that dictated mourning. Victorian England was a landscape where death was both intimate and public, where the rituals surrounding loss were deeply embedded in social identity and personal expression. Families like the Whittakers were expected to perform their grief with dignity, donning black and observing strict codes of conduct that communicated loss to the wider community. Yet, for the Whittakers, the traditional avenues of mourning did not suffice. Their grief was raw and immediate, a force that demanded a tangible expression beyond the usual trappings of black crepe and formal condolences. The practice of post-mortem photography, though not uncommon in the 19th century, offered a way to preserve the fleeting presence of the departed, a final image that could stand as a testament to a life tragically cut short. For the Whittakers, this practice became a crucial part of their mourning, a means to hold on to Thomas in the face of his absence. The cultural significance of post-mortem photography in Victorian society cannot be overstated. It was a ritual born of necessity, emerging at a time when infant and child mortality rates were alarmingly high. Families often had no other visual record of their loved ones, making these portraits the sole link to a vanished life. The images were carefully composed to present the deceased in peaceful repose, sometimes even arranged to appear lifelike, blurring the line between death and sleep. These photographs were both a comfort and a confrontation, offering a semblance of presence, while starkly reminding viewers of mortality. However, the Whittakers' approach to memorializing Thomas diverged from the conventional. While many families accepted the somber stillness typical of post-mortem portraits, the Whittakers sought something more, a photograph that captured not just the finality of death, but the enduring spirit of their son. Their desire was to preserve an image that conveyed life rather than absence, warmth rather than coldness. This aspiration imbued their choice with a subtle defiance of the era's norms, a quiet rebellion against the erasure that death threatened to impose. Margaret Whittaker, in particular, was instrumental in shaping this vision. A woman of strong will and deep emotional resilience, she had witnessed the fragility of life firsthand, having lost her own mother in childhood. Her grief for Thomas was both personal and profound, compelling her to seek a way to immortalize the boy's essence. She viewed the photograph not merely as a memorial, but as a vessel of connection, a means to keep her son's spirit within reach, even as his physical presence faded. Edward Whittaker, though more reserved, shared his wife's conviction. He recognized the power of an image to transcend spoken words and formal mourning rituals. Together, they commissioned a local photographer who was known for his sensitivity and skill, entrusting him with the delicate task of rendering their son's likeness in a manner that would honor both his life and their grief. The decision to engage this particular artist was deliberate. The Whitakers sought someone who could navigate the technical and emotional complexities of post-mortem photography with care and artistry. This family's social standing played a nuanced role in their grieving process. As members of the burgeoning middle class, the Whitakers were acutely aware of the social expectations that governed expressions of loss. Mourning attire, etiquette, and public displays of grief were all codified within their social milieu, serving as markers of respectability and emotional propriety. Yet, the Whitakers' choice to pursue a portrait that seemed to breathe with an almost unnatural vitality challenged the conventional boundaries of mourning and remembrance. The cultural landscape of Victorian England was one in which death was paradoxically both commonplace and fraught with taboo. The rituals surrounding it were meticulously observed, designed to contain grief within socially acceptable forms. Yet beneath these rituals lay a persistent human desire to deny finality, to capture and retain the essence of those lost. The Whitakers embodied this tension, their grief manifesting in a photograph that would blur the lines between memory and presence, life and death. In the months leading up to the portrait's creation, the family navigated the emotional terrain of loss with a mixture of sorrow and determination. They prepared their home and their hearts for a moment that would become both a farewell and a testament. The photograph was not simply to be a record, but a ritual act, an attempt to wrest meaning from tragedy and to assert, through art and memory, the enduring bond between the living and the dead. The Whitakers' story, set against the broader backdrop of Victorian death customs, reveals the intricate interplay between social convention and personal grief. Their experience was shaped by an era in which mourning was both a public performance and a private sorrow, where images served as conduits for memory and connection. The portrait of Thomas Whitaker thus emerges not only as a family keepsake, but as a cultural artifact, embodying the hopes, fears, and complexities of a society grappling with the fragility of life and the inevitability of death. Through their unique approach to post-mortem photography, the Whitakers challenged the norms of their time, creating an image that transcended mere representation. Their story invites us to consider the ways in which grief is expressed and preserved, and how the rituals of mourning evolve to meet the needs of the bereaved. In capturing Thomas's likeness, they forged a lasting legacy, an image that continues to provoke reflection on the nature of loss, memory, and the human desire to hold on to what is gone. The preparation for Thomas Whitaker's portrait was a meticulous process, one that blended the technical demands of early photography with the emotional weight carried by both family and photographer. In the modest parlor of the Whitaker home, the atmosphere was thick with a solemn reverence, a charged silence, underscored by the unspoken hope that this image might capture something beyond mere likeness, perhaps even a trace of the boy's spirit. The room, typically a space for daily family life, had been transformed into a makeshift studio, its corners softened by the flickering light of oil lamps and the muted glow filtering through heavy curtains. At the center of this scene was the chair Thomas had often occupied as a child, an elegant Victorian piece upholstered in rich velvet, its ornate woodwork a testament to the family's attention to detail and social standing. This familiar seat had been carefully positioned near a window where natural light could diffuse gently across his pale face, preventing harsh shadows that might mar the delicate features. His clothes, chosen with great care, were freshly laundered and pressed. A fine white shirt with lace trim, knickerbockers, and soft leather boots, all arranged to evoke an innocence preserved in time. The photographer himself was a local artisan named Charles Beaumont, a man whose reputation for skill was matched only by his willingness to take on the more unusual commissions that others shunned. Beaumont was known for his mastery of light and composition, but also for his sensitivity to the emotional weight inherent in his work. In the years leading up to this session, he had developed a particular expertise in post-mortem photography, a niche that demanded both technical precision and a delicate human touch. Yet even he found himself unsettled by the task before him. Beaumont arrived at the Whittaker residence with his bulky wooden camera, tripod, and an array of chemical solutions necessary for the wet plate collodion process, the prevalent photographic method of the era. This technique required the photographic plate to be sensitized, exposed, and developed within a narrow window of time, demanding efficiency and skill. The process was unforgiving. Any delay could result in a blurred or unusable image. Yet the challenge was compounded by the subject's condition. Thomas's stillness was absolute, but the photographer sought to evoke something more, a semblance of life in the boy's expression. To achieve this, Beaumont and the family undertook careful preparations. They arranged props and draped fabrics to soften the scene, aiming to counterbalance the cold rigidity that death imposed. Margaret Whittaker, though overcome with grief, participated actively in the setup, ensuring that her son's hands were gently clasped in his lap and that his head was tilted slightly, as if in quiet repose. The lighting was adjusted repeatedly. Natural daylight was supplemented by strategically placed reflectors fashioned from mirrors and white cloth, designed to illuminate the contours of Thomas's face, lending it a gentle warmth. Despite the technical constraints of the era, Beaumont employed subtle innovations to capture the boy's features with remarkable clarity. He used a lens with a wide aperture to allow as much light as possible, reducing exposure time and minimizing the risk of blurring. The composition was carefully framed to center Thomas's face and upper body, with a shallow depth of field that softened the background, directing the viewer's attention to the boy's expression. Every element was orchestrated to create an image that would convey both serenity and vitality, an impossible balance that pushed the boundaries of the medium. One of the most remarkable aspects of the photograph is the boy's smile, a gentle, almost knowing curve of the lips that seems incongruous with the finality of death. Achieving this effect was no accident. Beaumont later recounted in private notes that he had experimented with positioning and lighting to coax a semblance of animation from the stillness. The Whittakers, too, had a role to play. Margaret's recollections spoke of a quiet ritual of positioning, of softly speaking to her son as if to elicit a response, of arranging his features to reflect the warmth she remembered. It was a collaborative effort, a delicate dance between artifice and authenticity. Yet, as the session progressed, an eerie tension settled over the room. The line between life and death seemed to blur, the boy's features taking on a vitality that defied explanation. Beaumont found himself grappling with conflicting emotions, awe at the technical achievement and unease at the unsettling realism of the image. The family, caught between grief and hope, oscillated between sorrow and a tentative comfort. The atmosphere was thick with the weight of unspoken questions. Could a photograph capture more than mere appearance? Could it preserve a spark of the soul? These questions were not unique to the Whitakers or Beaumont. They echoed through Victorian society, where death was a constant presence and images served as bridges between worlds. The act of post-mortem photography was as much a spiritual endeavor as a technical one, a means to defy the erasure of death by preserving a moment of life's semblance. In this context, the Whitakers' portrait was a profound statement, an attempt to assert continuity amidst rupture, to find solace in permanence where only loss seemed to exist. Beaumont's technical challenges were compounded by the inherent fragility of the wet plate collodion process. The plates had to be prepared just moments before exposure, and any disturbance could ruin the image. The boy's stillness was both a necessity and a source of tension. Even the slightest movement would blur the exposure. The photographer's skill lay not only in managing these technical demands, but in creating a composition that transcended them, imbuing the image with a depth that went beyond mere documentation. The lighting, carefully modulated through the interplay of natural and artificial sources, played a crucial role. Soft daylight filtered through lace curtains, casting a diffuse glow that softened the boy's features and minimized harsh contrasts. Reflectors bounced light into shadowed areas, ensuring that the expression was fully visible and imbued with warmth. This interplay of light and shadow was essential in creating the illusion of life, countering the flatness often associated with post-mortem images. The photographer also employed subtle retouching techniques, common at the time, to enhance the boy's appearance. Using fine brushes and pigments, Beaumont would have smoothed imperfections and sharpened lines to emphasize the expression. These interventions, while invisible to the casual observer, contributed to the final image's unsettling lifelikeness, a carefully crafted illusion that bridged the gap between death and memory. As the session came to a close, the family and photographer shared a moment of quiet reflection. The boy's portrait, still wet and vulnerable, held within it the weight of their grief and the hope for a lasting connection. It was a fragile triumph, a testament to the power of art and technology to confront the profound mysteries of mortality. This image, born from the convergence of technical mastery and profound human emotion, would soon become the focal point of whispers and wonder. The vividness of Thomas's smile, the softness of his gaze, and the delicate balance of light and shadow would challenge viewers to reconsider their understanding of death and remembrance. It was a photograph that did more than capture a likeness. It preserved a moment of transcendence, a fleeting glimpse of life's persistence beyond the final breath. When Charles Beaumont returned to his studio to develop the photographs taken of young Thomas Whitaker, the image that gradually emerged under the chemical baths was unlike any he had encountered before. The boy's face appeared startlingly vivid, his serene smile seeming to radiate warmth and presence, despite the somber context of the portrait. Beaumont, a seasoned photographer, familiar with the nuances of post-mortem images, was struck by the lifelike quality that seemed almost to breathe from the photograph. The technical mastery was undeniable, but it was the emotional impact that unsettled him, and those who would later view the image. As the photograph took shape, Beaumont recalled the tense stillness of the session, the way the boy's features had seemed to hold a quiet animation. Now, rendered permanently on the photographic plate, that moment was both captured and transformed. The image did not merely depict a lifeless child. It suggested a presence that transcended death, challenging the viewer's assumptions about finality and absence. Beaumont's initial awe was tinged with unease. Had he created an image that blurred the boundary between life and death? News of the photograph's development spread quickly among the Whittaker family and close acquaintances, eliciting a mixture of wonder and discomfort. Margaret Whittaker, upon receiving the prints, found solace in the image's warmth, a tangible connection to her lost son that soothed her grief. Yet even she could not deny the unsettling nature of Thomas's vivid smile, which seemed to mock the permanence of death with its gentle vitality. For the family, the photograph became a paradoxical emblem, both a comfort and a haunting reminder. Among the wider circle of friends and neighbors, reactions varied sharply. Some viewed the image with reverence, admiring its beauty and the technical skill involved. Others whispered of unnaturalness, sensing that the portrait did not conform to the usual somber stillness expected of memorial images. The boy's smile, so clear and serene, defied the conventions of mourning and stirred unease. Rumors began to circulate, fueled by the photograph's growing notoriety, suggesting that it might hold hidden meanings or even supernatural qualities. These early speculations were fueled in part by the photograph's unusual realism. At a time when post-mortem images typically portrayed the deceased with closed eyes and rigid expressions, Thomas's open, expressive gaze and gentle smile were anomalous. Some believed that the image captured not just the boy's likeness, but a fragment of his soul, preserved against the cold certainty of death. Others dismissed such notions as superstition, attributing the effect to skilled artistry and photographic technique. The tensions surrounding the image reflected broader Victorian anxieties about death, memory, and the afterlife. The era was steeped in spiritualism and fascination with the unseen, with seances and spirit photography gaining popularity. In this context, the Whittaker portrait became entangled in debates about the nature of death and the possibility of lingering presence. Was the photograph merely a careful illusion, or did it reveal something deeper, an echo of consciousness captured in silver nitrate? Within the family, these questions sparked conflicting emotions. Margaret Whittaker, deeply religious yet profoundly grief-stricken, found herself torn between hope and doubt. The portrait offered a form of consolation, a reminder that Thomas's essence might endure. Yet it also confronted her with the stark reality of loss, the unbridgeable gulf between life and death. Edward Whittaker, more pragmatic but equally affected, grappled with the photograph's implications, wary of the rumors that threatened to overshadow their private mourning. The photograph also played a role in shaping the family's mourning process. It became a focal point in their home, displayed with care, yet shielded from casual view. Visitors were drawn to it, and conversations often turned to the boy's memory, the image serving as both a memorial and a catalyst for reflection. The portrait's presence challenged the conventional silence surrounding death, inviting engagement with grief in a tangible form. As the image circulated beyond the family, through friends, acquaintances, and eventually local society circles, it became a subject of fascination and debate. Some praised its artistry and emotional resonance, while others questioned its propriety and authenticity. The photograph's lifelike quality blurred the line between tribute and transgression, unsettling those who preferred mourning to remain solemn and restrained. In the months following the session, local newspapers and social commentators occasionally referenced the photograph, often veiled in euphemism or coded language. It was described as a remarkable likeness or a gentle memorial, though underlying tones of curiosity and apprehension suggested a deeper unease. The image became emblematic of a shifting cultural landscape in which death was both confronted and aestheticized, a subject of both reverence and sensationalism. Among the photographic community, Beaumont's work attracted attention for its technical excellence and emotional depth. Peers debated the methods employed to achieve the boy's vivid expression, speculating on the interplay of lighting, composition, and retouching. Some argued that Beaumont had pushed the boundaries of acceptable representation, imbuing the image with a vitality that challenged norms. Others admired his skill in navigating the difficult terrain of death photography, balancing respect for the subject with artistic innovation. Despite the acclaim, the portrait's unsettling qualities fostered a degree of caution. Families and photographers alike debated the ethics of presenting the deceased in such a lifelike manner, concerned about the psychological impact on viewers. The Whitaker photograph became a touchstone in these discussions, cited as an example of the power and potential peril of post-mortem imagery that bordered on the uncanny. Rumors soon took on a life of their own. Some whispered that the photograph had been created using forbidden techniques, or that the family had engaged in occult practices to preserve Thomas's expression. Others suggested that the boy's spirit lingered in the image, imbuing it with an eerie vitality. These stories, though unsubstantiated, contributed to the portrait's mystique, elevating it from a family memento to an object of local legend. The duality of comfort and unease embedded in the photograph reflected the complex psychology of mourning in Victorian society. The image offered a means to defy the erasure of death, preserving memory in a tangible form. Yet it also confronted viewers with the disquieting reality of mortality, challenging the boundaries between presence and absence. This tension resonated deeply in a culture grappling with the mysteries of life and the finality of death. For the Whitakers, the photograph remained a cherished yet complicated relic. It was a source of solace, a reminder of Thomas's innocence and the love that endured beyond his passing. At the same time, it was a silent witness to their grief, a testament to the fragility of life and the human yearning for continuity. The image's haunting smile lingered in the family's consciousness, a symbol of both hope and loss. As the years passed, the photograph would continue to evoke fascination and debate. Its initial reception, a mixture of admiration, speculation, and unease, set the stage for a legacy that would extend far beyond the Whitaker household. The boy's serene smile, captured so vividly against the backdrop of death, challenged assumptions and invited ongoing reflection on the nature of memory, mourning, and the enduring power of the photographic image. In the years that followed the creation of Thomas Whitaker's portrait, early photographic experts and historians began to examine the image with a level of scrutiny that extended beyond its immediate emotional resonance. The boy's striking smile and the lifelike quality of the photograph piqued the curiosity of those who sought to understand not only the technical means by which the image had been produced, but also the psychological and cultural factors that contributed to its profound impact. These investigations would uncover unusual techniques and invite theories that blurred the boundaries between art, science, and metaphysics. One of the earliest analyses came from Augustus Langley, a prominent photographic chemist of the late 19th century, who was intrigued by the technical mastery evident in Beaumont's work. Langley's interest was sparked by reports that the Whitaker portrait possessed an almost uncanny vibrancy, a feature uncommon in post-mortem photographs of the era. Upon examining the original plates and prints, Langley noted that the image exhibited an exceptional clarity and contrast, achieved through a combination of precise exposure timing and innovative chemical processing. Langley's investigations revealed that Beaumont had employed a modified collodion process, altering the composition of the sensitizing solution to enhance the tonal range of the plate. This adjustment allowed for greater differentiation between light and shadow, lending the image a depth that contributed to the illusion of vitality. Furthermore, Langley discovered that Beaumont had used a series of layered varnishes and chemical treatments during development, techniques that were largely experimental at the time, which increased the reflectivity and saturation of the final print. These technical findings explained much of the portrait's visual impact, yet they did not fully account for the emotional response it evoked. To better understand the photograph's psychological effect, Langley collaborated with Dr. Eleanor Fitzpatrick, a pioneering psychologist interested in the interplay between imagery and human perception. Fitzpatrick's research focused on the ways in which visual cues, such as facial expressions and lighting, could influence emotional states and memory recall. In her study of the Whitaker portrait, Fitzpatrick noted that the boy's smile, combined with the soft, even lighting and subtle blurring of the background, created a focal point that drew the viewer's gaze and elicited a sense of warmth and familiarity. She theorized that these visual elements engaged the brain's mirror neuron system, triggering empathetic responses typically reserved for living subjects. This neurological reaction could explain why viewers often described feeling a connection to the boy, as if he were still present in some intangible way. Fitzpatrick also explored the cultural context of the image, emphasizing the Victorian fascination with death and the afterlife. She posited that the portrait's lifelike qualities tapped into a collective desire to see death softened, to find beauty and hope amid loss. This psychological framing suggested that the photograph's power lay not only in its technical execution, but in its capacity to resonate with deeply held human emotions and beliefs about mortality. Simultaneously, photographic historians delved into archival records and Beaumont's personal correspondence to uncover clues about the methods used during the session. Letters between Beaumont and the Whitaker family hinted at an unusually prolonged preparation time before the photograph was taken, suggesting that extensive efforts were made to position Thomas in a manner that would evoke life. These documents also referenced the use of certain botanical extracts applied to the boy's skin, a practice occasionally employed by Victorian photographers to improve the appearance of the subject and counteract the pallor of death. Further examination of the studio's equipment revealed the presence of specialized lenses and light diffusers, indicating that Beaumont had tailored his apparatus to achieve a softer, more natural illumination. This attention to detail, combined with the experimental chemical treatments, underscored the photographer's commitment to pushing the limits of contemporary technology in service of a transcendent image. Beyond the technical and psychological analyses, some investigators ventured into more speculative territory. A small contingent of researchers proposed that the photograph might capture more than physical appearance, perhaps a residual imprint of consciousness or life force. Inspired by emerging fields such as psychical research and spirit photography, they suggested that certain images could retain traces of a subject's essence, preserved through the interplay of light, chemistry, and human intention. Though these theories lacked empirical support, they contributed to the growing mystique surrounding the Whitaker portrait. The idea that a photograph might bridge the divide between life and death resonated with Victorian spiritualist movements, which sought evidence of an afterlife through various mediums and technologies. This intersection of science, art, and spirituality imbued the photograph with a symbolic significance that transcended its immediate context. In the decades that followed, the Whitaker portrait became a case study in the potential of photography to evoke complex emotional and metaphysical responses. Scholars explored its place within the broader history of death representation, noting how it challenged prevailing norms by presenting a deceased child with such vivid animation. This departure from traditional post-mortem imagery sparked debates about the ethics and purposes of memorial photography, whether it should comfort by simulating life or solemnly acknowledge death's finality. Contemporary experts also revisited the image using emerging technologies. Early photographic forensics employed magnification and chemical analysis to discern retouching and layering techniques, confirming that Beaumont's work involved deliberate enhancements to achieve the boy's expressive visage. These findings reinforced the understanding that the image's power was crafted through a combination of artistry and innovation. Moreover, psychological studies examined the portrait's impact on viewers, noting consistent physiological responses such as pupil dilation and subtle changes in heart rate, indicators of emotional engagement. These reactions suggested that the image tapped into innate human mechanisms for recognizing and responding to faces, particularly those conveying emotion. The boy's smile, delicately captured and enhanced, activated these systems, creating a sense of connection that transcended the photograph's static nature. The Whitaker portrait thus emerged as a seminal work at the crossroads of technical mastery, emotional resonance, and cultural significance. Its creation involved a convergence of experimental photographic processes, careful composition, and a profound understanding of the human psyche. The resulting image was not merely a memorial, but a complex artifact that challenged viewers to reconsider their relationship with death, memory, and the images that both preserve and transform them. This synthesis of scientific inquiry and artistic expression elevated the photograph beyond its initial purpose, inviting ongoing exploration of photography's role in shaping perceptions of mortality. The Whitaker portrait became a touchstone for debates about the medium's capacity to capture more than surface appearance, to evoke presence, stir memory, and perhaps in some intangible way, transcend the boundaries between life and death. Decades after the creation of Thomas Whitaker's portrait, the image had grown beyond its origins as a family keepsake to become a subject of scholarly fascination and cultural intrigue. Historians, psychologists, and cultural theorists alike turned their attention to the photograph, seeking to unravel its enduring impact and the layers of meaning embedded within its haunting smile. Through a series of investigations, the portrait was situated within the broader Victorian cultural landscape, revealing its deep connections to contemporary attitudes toward death, memory, and identity. Historians of Victorian society examined the Whitaker photograph as a poignant example of how death was visually and emotionally negotiated during an era marked by both rigid social codes and emerging spiritualist beliefs. The photograph's lifelike depiction of a deceased child challenged the conventions of post-mortem imagery, which typically emphasized stillness and solemnity. This divergence was seen as reflective of a shifting cultural desire to soften the harshness of mortality, to render death more palatable through images that suggested continuity rather than finality. In their analyses, scholars highlighted how the portrait's composition and expression aligned with Victorian ideals of childhood innocence and purity, a visual language employed to comfort the bereaved and affirm moral values. The boy's serene smile was interpreted as a symbol of peace and transcendence, embodying the hope that death was not an end, but a passage. This symbolic reading connected the photograph to broader Victorian narratives about the afterlife, where children were often depicted as angelic and unspoiled, their deaths framed as a return to divine purity. Psychologists and cultural theorists explored the photograph's impact on viewers, noting its capacity to evoke complex emotional responses that transcended time and context. Studies indicated that the image's combination of familiarity and otherworldliness triggered a tension between recognition and estrangement, inviting viewers into an intimate encounter with mortality. The boy's vivid smile, so at odds with the reality of death, acted as a focal point for this tension, drawing observers into a silent dialogue about loss, memory, and the human desire to hold on to life. This tension was further amplified by the photograph's ambiguity. Its simultaneous evocation of life and death created a liminal space where viewers grappled with their own fears and hopes. The portrait became a mirror, reflecting cultural anxieties about the impermanence of existence and the yearning for endurance. In this sense, the image functioned as both a personal memorial and a collective symbol, resonating with the Victorian preoccupation with mortality and the afterlife. The growing mystique surrounding the photograph was fueled by its circulation in both private and public spheres. Reproductions appeared in journals and exhibitions focused on photography's role in memorial practices, sparking debates about the ethical and aesthetic boundaries of depicting the dead. Some critics praised the portrait's artistry and emotional depth, while others questioned whether such lifelike representations blurred necessary distinctions between life and death, potentially unsettling the bereaved. Among these discussions, the photograph was often cited as a pivotal example of the evolving relationship between technology and mourning. The advent of photography had transformed how societies remembered the dead, shifting from oral and textual traditions to visual documentation. The Whitaker portrait, with its exceptional lifelikeness, exemplified how photography could both preserve memory and redefine it, creating images that were not static records, but dynamic participants in the grieving process. Psychological research into mourning practices further illuminated the portrait's significance. Scholars noted that images like the Whitaker photograph served as tangible anchors for memory, enabling the bereaved to maintain a sense of connection with the departed. The boy's smile, in particular, was seen as a comforting presence, a visual affirmation of love and remembrance that countered the erasure of death. This function aligned with contemporary understandings of grief, which emphasized the importance of continuing bonds and the integration of loss into one's ongoing life. At the same time, the portrait's unsettling qualities sparked inquiries into the psychological effects of post-mortem imagery. Some theorists posited that the lifelike depiction might provoke cognitive dissonance, as viewers struggled to reconcile the image's vitality with their knowledge of death. This dissonance could evoke both comfort and distress, underscoring the complex emotional terrain navigated by those who engaged with such photographs. The Whitaker portrait also became a lens through which to examine Victorian attitudes toward childhood death. The high mortality rates among children imbued their deaths with particular poignancy, and memorial images played a crucial role in expressing and processing this loss. The boy's serene smile was interpreted as a visual narrative that eased the pain of bereavement by framing death within a context of innocence and transcendence. This narrative resonated with Victorian ideals that valorized childhood purity and spiritual continuity. In academic circles, the photograph was frequently discussed alongside other notable post-mortem images, contributing to a burgeoning field of study that considered death photography as a distinct genre with its own conventions and meanings. The Whitaker portrait stood out for its exceptional ability to evoke presence and emotion, serving as a case study in how visual culture mediated experiences of loss and remembrance. The image's impact extended beyond scholarly discourse, influencing contemporary artistic and cultural works that grappled with themes of mortality and memory. Its haunting smile became an iconographic motif, inspiring reinterpretations that explored the boundaries between life and death, presence and absence. Through these engagements, the photograph's legacy persisted, continually inviting reflection on the human condition. Moreover, the photograph's mystique deepened as researchers uncovered layers of meaning that intertwined technical innovation, emotional resonance, and cultural symbolism. The boy's smile emerged as a potent emblem, simultaneously a source of comfort, a challenge to conventional mourning, and a catalyst for philosophical inquiry. This multifaceted significance ensured that the image remained a subject of fascination and debate well into modern times. The portrait's prominence in Victorian culture also highlighted the era's negotiation of death's visibility. While death was an omnipresent reality, it was often cloaked in formality and restraint. The Whitaker photograph, with its vivid expression and intimate composition, pierced this veil, offering a more immediate and personal encounter with mortality. This openness both reflected and shaped evolving cultural attitudes, marking a shift toward more expressive and individualized mourning practices. In sum, the continued investigations into the Whitaker portrait revealed its complex role as a cultural artifact. It was not merely a photograph of a deceased child, but a dynamic symbol that engaged with Victorian society's hopes, fears, and rituals surrounding death. Through its lifelike depiction and evocative smile, the image illuminated the intricate interplay between memory and loss, technology and emotion, presence and absence. Its enduring power lay in its capacity to embody these tensions, inviting viewers across generations to confront the mysteries of mortality with both sorrow and wonder. In the dawn of the 21st century, technological advancements breathed new life into the study of historical photographs, and Thomas Whitaker's portrait was no exception. Digital enhancement and forensic photography techniques offered contemporary experts unprecedented tools to examine the image in intimate detail, revealing subtle nuances that had eluded previous generations. These modern analyses deepened understanding of the portrait's technical mastery and emotional resonance, challenging current perceptions of death photography and its complex role in cultural memory. Using high-resolution digital scanning, forensic specialists meticulously captured every pixel of the original print, allowing for magnification without loss of clarity. This process unveiled intricate details in the boy's expression, the delicate curves of his lips, the faint creases around his eyes, and the slight asymmetry of his smile, all contributing to an impression of naturalness and warmth. These subtle features suggested a deliberate orchestration by the photographer, Charles Beaumont, whose artistic acumen in crafting the image's lifelike quality was now more apparent than ever. Digital analysis also identified evidence of meticulous retouching, a common practice in 19th century photography, but executed here with exceptional skill. Fine brushstrokes and pigment applications were discovered along the contours of Thomas's face and hands, softening shadows and enhancing highlights to create a gentle glow. This careful manipulation served to mask the pallor and rigidity often associated with post-mortem subjects, instead imbuing the portrait with a softness that blurred the boundary between life and death. These findings confirmed that the haunting smile was not merely a happenstance of chance, but a product of intentional artistic intervention. Forensic experts further examined the lighting techniques employed during the session. The interplay of natural and artificial light sources, combined with reflectors and diffusers, was revealed through the analysis of shadow gradients and light fall-off. The lighting was orchestrated to highlight Thomas's facial features while minimizing the appearance of lifelessness, a delicate balance that contributed significantly to the photograph's unsettling vitality. This sophisticated use of light underscored Beaumont's mastery of his medium and his sensitivity to the emotional weight of his subject. Beyond the technical, neuroscientific research began to explore the psychological effects the portrait elicited in modern viewers. Functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI. Studies examined brain activity when subjects viewed the Whittaker image compared to other post-mortem and living portraits. Remarkably, the boy's photograph activated regions associated with social cognition and empathy, including the fusiform face area and mirror neuron systems. These areas are typically engaged when processing familiar faces and interpreting emotional expressions, suggesting that viewers perceived Thomas's image as imbued with a semblance of consciousness. This neural engagement was particularly pronounced in response to the boy's smile, which appeared to trigger recognition patterns similar to those elicited by living subjects. The photograph's ability to evoke such responses challenged assumptions about the static nature of death imagery, indicating that certain visual cues could provoke a sense of presence and emotional connection even across the gulf of mortality. These findings bridged the gap between art and science, illustrating how photographic representation can influence human perception in profound ways. Contemporary psychologists also investigated the portrait's role in shaping modern attitudes toward death and remembrance. Through surveys and interviews, researchers found that viewers often experienced a complex interplay of emotions: comfort mixed with unease, fascination entwined with sorrow. The boy's serene smile was described as simultaneously inviting and enigmatic, offering a portal into contemplation of life's fragility and the persistence of memory. This emotional ambivalence reflected broader societal tensions around death, where advances in medical technology and digital media have transformed mourning practices but have not diminished the deep human need for connection. The Whittaker portrait thus emerged as a powerful symbol within the evolving discourse on death photography. Its technical brilliance and emotional depth challenged contemporary viewers to reconsider preconceived notions about the medium's purpose and impact. Rather than serving solely as a static memorial, the image functioned as an active participant in the process of mourning, engaging observers in a dialogue that transcended time and cultural context. Digital restoration efforts further emphasized the photograph's artistic qualities. By digitally removing aging artifacts such as scratches, stains, and fading, restorers revealed the original composition's clarity and delicacy. This process highlighted the craftsmanship involved in the image's creation, from the precise framing to the subtle gradations of tone that lent it a painterly quality. The restoration also allowed for broader dissemination, making the image accessible to new audiences and scholars, thereby perpetuating its intrigue and significance. In parallel, art historians contextualized the portrait within the history of visual culture, examining its influence on subsequent representations of death and memory. The Whittaker image was identified as a precursor to later artistic movements that explored themes of mortality, presence, and absence. Its blending of realism and idealization anticipated modern photographic approaches that seek to capture the ephemeral qualities of human experience, reinforcing the photograph's enduring relevance. Ethical considerations surrounding the display and study of such images also came to the fore. Debates within museum and academic circles addressed the delicate balance between respecting the deceased and acknowledging the cultural and historical value of post-mortem photography. The Whittaker portrait became a case study in these discussions, exemplifying the challenges of presenting images that evoke profound emotional responses while honoring the individuality and dignity of the subject. The portrait's presence in digital archives and public exhibitions sparked renewed public interest, inspiring contemporary artists and writers to engage with its themes. Creative reinterpretations ranged from visual art installations to literary explorations of grief and memory, demonstrating the image's capacity to inspire reflection on universal human experiences. This ongoing dialogue between past and present underscored the photograph's role as a living artifact, continually reshaped by cultural meanings and personal interpretations. Moreover, the Whitaker portrait challenged modern perceptions of death photography by exposing the medium's potential to transcend mere documentation. It revealed how technical innovation, artistic vision, and psychological engagement converge to create images that do more than record. They communicate, evoke, and endure. The boy's smile, preserved and enhanced through careful craftsmanship, became a focal point for contemplation about the nature of presence and absence, life and death. Through the lens of contemporary science and art, the photograph invites us to reconsider our relationship with mortality and memory. It beckons us to acknowledge the power of images to bridge temporal divides, to connect the living with the departed in ways that are at once comforting and unsettling. The enduring fascination with Thomas Whitaker's portrait testifies to the profound human yearning to capture and preserve the essence of life, even in the face of inevitable loss. In this light, the portrait stands not only as a historical artifact, but as a testament to the continuing dialogue between technology, emotion, and culture. It challenges us to reflect on how we remember, mourn, and celebrate those who have passed, reminding us that within the stillness of a photograph may reside the flickering light of presence, waiting to be seen anew by each generation. Nearly a century and a half after that first exposure in the Whitaker parlor, the photograph of Thomas, a boy forever caught between life and death, continues to captivate and unsettle those who encounter it. This enduring image, with its serene yet vivid smile, acts as a silent bridge spanning generations, inviting viewers to confront the fragile boundary where memory and mortality intertwine. It remains a haunting testament to the human desire to defy oblivion, to preserve presence amid absence, and to find meaning in the enigmatic passage from life to death. The portrait's journey from a private family memorial to a subject of scholarly intrigue and cultural fascination underscores its profound resonance. Its power lies not only in technical mastery or artistic vision, but in the emotional and philosophical questions it raises, questions about how we mourn, how we remember, and how we seek to transcend the finality that death imposes. Thomas's smile, so carefully rendered and yet so unsettlingly alive, challenges us to reconsider our perceptions of mortality, inviting reflection on the complexities of human consciousness and the persistence of identity beyond physical demise. Throughout its history, the photograph has served as a focal point for debates about the ethics and aesthetics of post-mortem imagery. Its lifelike qualities, which so captivated Victorian audiences, continue to provoke unease in modern viewers, highlighting the delicate balance between commemoration and intrusion. The image embodies the tension inherent in memorial photography, a tension between the desire to preserve and the acceptance of loss, between the solace of memory and the inevitability of forgetting. Researchers who have studied the portrait over the decades have uncovered layers of meaning that transcend the photograph's surface. Their work suggests that the image functions not merely as a static record, but as an active agent in the mourning process, capable of evoking psychological and physiological responses that bridge the divide between observer and subject. The boy's smile appears to resonate on frequencies beyond the visible, touching aspects of human perception and emotion that elude easy explanation. This enigmatic quality has led some to speculate that the photograph captures more than a likeness, that it holds a trace of Thomas's consciousness, a flicker of life preserved in the interplay of light and chemistry. While such ideas remain firmly in the realm of theory and wonder, they speak to a deep human longing. The hope that death is not an end, but a transformation, that the essence of a person might endure beyond the corporeal shell. The photograph's withdrawal from public display in certain circles, due to its controversial psychological impact, only adds to its mystique. It has become, in many ways, a forbidden relic, an object of fascination and caution. Collectors, historians, and scientists continue to seek access to it, driven by an enduring curiosity about the boundaries of life, death, and the images that mediate between them. In 1967, a pivotal investigation by Dr. Robert Chen employed emerging neuroimaging technologies to examine the responses elicited by the portrait. Chen's findings indicated that viewing the photograph activated brain regions associated with consciousness recognition and empathic engagement, suggesting that the image might tap into fundamental neural processes related to awareness. These results, while preliminary and subject to ongoing debate, lent scientific weight to the notion that the photograph transcended mere representation, potentially serving as a conduit for aspects of Thomas's presence. Today, the portrait remains a haunting enigma within the annals of photographic history. It is a reminder that images carry power, not only through their content, but through the emotions and questions they evoke. The boy's smile endures as a symbol of life's persistence, a fragile flame flickering in the face of death's shadow. It challenges us to confront the mysteries of consciousness, memory, and the human spirit, urging us to look beyond the visible and consider the unseen dimensions of existence. The story of Thomas Whitaker and his mother, Margaret, a tale woven from grief, love, and the quest to transcend loss, invites ongoing reflection on the limits of human understanding. It reminds us that the act of remembering is itself a form of resistance against oblivion, that photographs can serve as vessels of connection, bridging time and space. In this light, the portrait is more than a relic. It is a living testament to the enduring human desire to make sense of mortality and to find hope in the face of the unknown. As viewers continue to encounter the image, they are drawn into a silent dialogue that crosses centuries, a conversation about life, death, and the spaces in between. The boy's smile, at once comforting and unsettling, serves as a mirror reflecting our own fears and hopes, our yearning for continuity amidst impermanence. It beckons us to ponder the nature of existence, the possibility of an enduring self, and the profound mysteries that lie beyond the reach of science and reason. In contemplating this photograph, we are reminded that the boundaries between life and death are often blurred, that memory and presence are intertwined in ways that defy simple explanation. The image of Thomas Whitaker stands as a testament to this intricate interplay, a fragile yet powerful symbol of the human condition. It invites us to embrace uncertainty, to honor the complexity of grief, and to acknowledge the profound ways in which images shape our understanding of what it means to live and to die. Thus, nearly 140 years later, the portrait remains an unresolved mystery, a haunting legacy etched in silver nitrate and human sorrow. It challenges us to continue exploring the intersections of art, history, science, and spirituality, urging us to keep seeking answers to the eternal questions of consciousness and mortality. In the boy's serene smile lies an invitation to remember, to wonder, and to confront the depths of life and death with both courage and compassion.